Welcome back, everybody. I'm Ryan,
I'm Jerry.
and we're two brothers off script here again. Today, we're going to be talking about kind of planning for the worst and how to deal with the worst things that can happen to you on a daily basis, and or little things that might make you think about the future, like what's going to go wrong down the line here, and how are you going to be prepared for it. We're not talking zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, this is not the prepper channel, but I think especially as a teenager, as a young adult, like it's really hard to think about saving for tomorrow, planting a seed.
Well, you just don't. There's no reason to. You've been handed everything your entire life. There's some kids who grow up, they say like, yeah, when I was 13, I left the house because it was a bad situation. I got out, and now I'm running my own business. And you don't see that.
That's rare.
That's not the typical situation. I think a lot of people get comfortable. They, like, for me, I hit the rock in the hard place. I made so little money one year, and if it wasn't for parents letting me crash for free, basically, like, I wouldn't have been able to even make it through. Like, I probably would have been on the streets somewhere. Um, but that was the worst, and that's when I really said, like, I can't let this happen again. I was like staying up late and playing video games and not showing up to work on time, and just not doing a good job of being an adult, even though I was legally an adult. Um, and then that made me think about, well, if I'm going to be, like, each step in my life has been because of a bad thing, usually, like
Sure.
something went wrong, or I had to just plan better for the next thing that could happen. And I think that's, like you talked about retirement, like,
Sure. How hard is it to think about that? I'm 36 years old today, or this year.
mm-hmm.
I feel like planning for retirement's incredibly hard right now. My wife and I are continuing to grow our family. We're getting ready to do another adoption, and we've adopted a few children already, and that's a great thing. And I'm happy about it. And they're wonderful kids, and I'm happy they're a part of the family. But it's expensive,
Yeah.
And so there's a thought there of how do I make sure that I'm taking care of them? How do I, get a will together and be planning for this big trip
Yeah.
and thinking about the future and life insurance and all this other stuff? And I don't
Do
want to.
you have life insurance,
I
right?
do. I have
But
life.
is it only through work, or you have your own?
I have some term life insurance through our agent, and I have some life insurance through my work, and I've made that decision as part of my budget to have that money. It's term, it's only good for the next, I don't know, 15 years or so until the kids are all grown up. 20
Right.
years until the kids are all grown up. But it's a provision in case I get
Yeah.
whacked on the head, on the way home from work one day. And
Right. And
Yeah.
that's not just planning for the worst. That's planning for best case scenario after the worst happens.
Sure.
A lot of people, I think, in this society, especially me, like, I'm pretty reactive. Like, I will plan as quickly as I can for what I'm going to do next, but I oftentimes only think in the short term, like where I'm going to be, a week from now as opposed to 6 months or a year from now. And, like, right now, that's kind of hard because I'm in the middle of trying to sell my house. And if all things go according to plan, yeah, I'll get a healthy paycheck from selling off a house because of appreciation. But, I might be back to a 2-bedroom apartment because I literally can't afford, a better house because the house prices has gone up so much. I'm capitalizing on it, but it's going to hurt me on the back end because I won't be able to afford a better house that's even equal to or lesser than the current house I have now.
Well, and I think that all of these kinds of decisions, when you look at the financial choices that you're making about, even like something about going to college,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's costing me money right now to try to go to college. I just had a conversation with a young woman today. We were talking about her career and her future, and one of the things I asked her was, Because she said, I want to go into management, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And I said, well, have you considered going to college? And she said, well, it's expensive. I said, yeah,
Yeah.
but you're 20.
You got time to pay it off, or
You've
you
got time.
to,
You've got time to work. You can work while you go to college. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I've had
You're-
that same problem as trying to split my attention, and basically you're cutting out almost all of your entertainment.
Yeah. You're going to cut out a lot of entertainment.
And that's
You're going to cut out time with your family. You're going to have things that happen. There's things that happening. This weekend I've got a paper due, and I love my kids and I love my wife and I want to spend time with them. But at the same time, like, I've got to get that done, and so I'm going to make a choice not to spend time with them,
right.
so that I can finish this. I've got a year to go, and when that's over, the goal is to have a job that is more productive, because I'm trying to plan ahead.
Now, is that going to benefit you in the same field, or are you going to?
It may. I'm planning for. I personally have been through several situations now where the companies that I've worked for have shut down.
Right.
I've worked for large organizations where I've had to see workers get laid off. I personally have had to lay off, people that I worked with.
Right.
And it sucks, and it's horrible. And when I got done laying everybody off, they said, "Hey, you're going to be the next guy on the chopping block." And I said, "Yeah, I figured."
But that's coming from your perspective. But what happened to the guy who got laid off? What was his game plan? Did any of them ever say to you, like, while you had to relay the hard news, like, "I'm really sorry, you got to go. This is just the company downsizing, and I'm sorry to be the one that delivers the bad news." And the guy on the other side of the table says, "Oh, no worries, man. I got a backup plan over here. I'm totally set."
So
Did that ever happen?
probably 2 people out of 100 told me that they had a plan.
And what was their plan?
They had saved money. They had not gone out and bought a new truck.
So they had a little parachute, but
Well, they had saved a lot of money.
Okay. I mean, they were good
had
careers.
Yeah, they had worked for years and years and years. One of the things I heard commonly working within manufacturing was, a guy who was handy, or a woman who was handy, and it was enterprising and an entrepreneur, had, they'd worked really, really hard. They'd taken all the overtime they could get. They worked every scrap and every minute that they could,
Yeah.
and they poured all that into their primary home, and then they bought another home, and they fixed it up, and they sold it, or they rented it, and then they
Right.
bought another home, and they'd done that 4, 5, 6 times, and they were sitting on $600,000 or $700,000 worth of assets.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And
For
they
a
had
little
just
while, at least.
they had just worked and worked and worked and worked as hard as they could all the time
They had that "you can sleep when you're dead" motto, I guess.
for years.
Yeah.
And I have huge respect for those people, because I'm a procrastinator. I mean, I am. I don't want to do the hard work.
Right.
I struggle with that. It's just not my natural personality. I'd rather wait and see what happens. Maybe the plan will get canceled.
I find myself not necessarily preparing for the situation, but when I'm in something, I'm in it, up to my neck, and I just stay in it. So, like, if I have a job to get done, I tend to try and just stay on it until it's done. I've developed that over a long period of time. Is like, if there's something that needs to be done, and you have the ability right now to do it while you're thinking about it, make that phone call, schedule that meeting, do it right then and there. Because, like, for me, it's just, forget about it, it's gone. Like, I don't even remember to come back to it until it's too late. Oh wait, I was supposed to do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think for all of us, there's this almost like this trap of the couch, is what I'll call it. You work today, even if you were just working with your kids, right? You're stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad. You're hanging out with your kids all day long. You feel worn out. They go to bed. The house is quiet. Finally, you get a cup of something. You sit down, and the couch traps you. And it's almost like our brains go, all right, we're done. We deserve to not move for the next 3 hours until we finally roll out and go up to bed.
Well, that's probably how we're designed. I mean, I don't think most of us are supposed to be in a 9 to 5 situation. I think that there should be a little bit more flexibility, but then things don't get done. Corporations don't make money and people don't get their jobs. So how do you fit inside of that envelope and be an effective member of this thing and then still protect yourself down the line? And
well,
here's really,
my pitch is I don't think you can.
Yeah, you're going to get to the end and you're going to be so worn out and tired that you can't even do anything with your
I don't
funds.
think you can sit down at the couch. And if you're going to sit down at the couch, I think you've got to figure out a way to tell yourself to get back up off the couch.
Right.
Like, I can't, for myself, when I know I've got stuff that I've got to do, I can't come home and spend time with the kids and then go sit on the couch and watch a show for half an hour.
I got your solution.
I can't do it. I've got to go right to it.
Furniture because it's not that comfortable. That's the solution. You'll get right back up.
A non-endorsed review of IKEA furniture.
No, that's all good.
By Ryan.
Not
that comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, so about the last 2 years until I started this other job, there was a few people in my department that we were in the shipping receiving. So that meant that constantly you had stuff coming and going. And we didn't really know what the exact schedule was. But no one asked us first, what's going on. And we would end up with trucks that would show up at lunch and breaks. And so I actually got in the habit of skipping breaks because there was always something to do. If you didn't meet your deadline and the truck sat there for 5 minutes and they started to complain, I held a truck at the dock for an extra hour because I was there by myself one Friday. And the company, my upper office, got a phone call from this guy's dispatch saying that we had held the truck. We had gotten a retention fee because we had held him too long while I was in the middle of unloading him. Like, it was driving a forklift back and forth. The guy knows I'm doing my job, but he didn't want to take the heat and say that he was at fault in any way, shape, or form because he showed up 5 minutes later. He showed up perfectly on time. There's literally nothing else I could have done except for take care of the first person who arrived. And then the company got in trouble, and so I got in trouble even though I was doing my job. And that in that company, that could have been a fireable offense. I mean, like, there's just so many things that could have gone wrong at that place. And it taught me that when situations like that occur, when you had something pressing to do at work, that took precedent because you needed to get it done so you could finally get time at the end of the day to actually relax. Because if you just keep, waiting and like, I take a break and then something shows up, you can't stop it. So
I don't know how many of those days I've had recently. Today was that day for me.
I don't think summer is a good thing. I think kids should go to school
full time,
year round, 1 year less. You know what I mean? Like, get out there and get in the workforce.
17.
Yeah. Get out there and make a difference earlier on, because you need to start getting out there and making those mistakes earlier on so you can start learning the real lessons and actually be more sane by the time you hit 21 and the bottle's available and you start getting these bad influence situations, and then you decide to not be a drunk and not be a loser and actually do something with your life. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes and I'm still paying for them today. But I've made so many better decisions because of those mistakes that are helping me plan for my future now. And I'm 32, I don't know how much time I actually have left. I don't have insurance, but I'm working towards finding a house, and I'm concerned about all the little things in that next step of my life that if I make the wrong decision, like 2 years ago when we bought this first house, it was not impulsive. We'd seen a few houses, but we jumped on it. We were like, this is it. This is the one we're going to get, and it's working out now. But it might not down the line when I buy a junk house because it's the only one I can afford. So,
well, what do you kind of feel like? So I'll take the position And I really believe this is part of our channel, is talking about what could you do different, right? What advice could you give yourself 12 years ago, right? About now, as you look forward at the future, what advice would you give yourself about planning for the future and trying to make better choices, right? Because you were in a situation where you wanted to learn everything on your own and you were 100% in control, or you didn't feel like you were in control, I'm not sure. What advice would you give yourself 12 years ago?
Well, 12 years ago, I was in an apartment. I had a lot of quote unquote friends, and my good friends and my bad friends. I don't think I had very many good friends then, and that left me feeling like the only responsible party, but also wanting to be part of things. I would make bad decisions. And that doesn't really relate so much to planning for the future, but it probably would have been better if someone had told me, you can do all the fun things after you get the job done. Because I spent a lot of time goofing off, playing around, not doing the job that needed to be done. When I still had the time afterwards, it was just like, I'm going to procrastinate this day. I'm going to hang out with this guy. I'm going to go to this party. I'm going to hang out at that park. I'm going to play that game. I'm going to do this thing. And none of it had anything to do with protecting myself in the future.
Right.
I didn't get any weird tattoos, but I drank too much and I hung out with the wrong people. And, I went to a few fun parties, but doing that stuff in my 20s and early 20s, and it was all getting through these things that I was never able to do at even a younger age, because I think that we were kind of sheltered. And then when I finally got out there and did those things, it was with the lamest group of misfits ever. So I really didn't even have any good parties. It was like, hey guys, let's hang out in the basement here and just be dumb. So I would say finish the job that you're working on right now, and then take your break afterwards.
Well, that's good advice. I think for me, I was in a position in my early 20s where I was so wrapped up in my own emotions. At that point, I had a busted up relationship that I had thought was super important, and I was so focused on my emotional state. It'll never get better. Nobody will ever understand how I feel. Woe is me. And I think depression, I'm not making light of, dealing with depression. When you're feeling depressed, you're feeling depressed. It's a real thing. It sucks.
Yeah.
But, planning for the future, I think a part for me would have been thinking about education in a different way. I 100% believe that education gives you choices. Education to me, and I mean in trade school, college, firefighting training, medical technician training, learning to drive a truck, being a welder, being an AC repair guy, being an electrician, be a nurse's assistant, be a doctor, whatever it is for you. Education gives you choices. When bad things happen, you have a choice.
I think a lot of people, in my situation as a youth, I didn't have any drive for anything specific. I would pick something up. I wanted to cook. I wanted to be in medical field. I wanted to be in the therapy field. I wanted to take care of people. I wanted to take care of myself. I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to go to space. Whatever it is, I had all these little different dreams. And as they would come up, I would get, well, if you're interested in this, here's a book, on this subject. And I'd read up on it, and then, or I'd do some other research. And I think this was the time of maybe net zero or something like that. So super slow internet, and you couldn't just figure out how much you could make. And I didn't really ever have any specific drive for any one thing. I think that if I had had encouragement to go to one thing or another, and I mean, I need a strong push really to get me in one direction or the other. But at 13, 14, 15, you're never really set. But around 17 and 18, when they start asking you these questions like, what are you going to do after school, after high school? It's an option. And as a child of 18 years old, you don't really know specifically what you want to do. Some people have had experiences, but
Most people don't know.
You're waiting for somebody else to tell you what you're good at, and then that's what you're going to pursue. And I think you really got to figure out what you're good at earlier on. And you can know by trying.
Well, the other way to go is be general, right? Like, and I don't recommend this for everybody, but for myself, like, I'm a generalist, okay? I can do a lot of different kinds of things. I've worked in a lot of different kinds of jobs. So I work with people and I work with machines, and I figure out how to make stuff happen. Right. That's me. That's what I do.
But you started all that through, the process of being kind of an outsider in school, not really having a lot of people that were good influences and having that bad relationship, and that led you to the military. The military gave you those directions to get you up in the morning and get you going every day because you didn't have a choice. And I think a lot of people, we have so many options now that you just can't decide. And I think that's terrible. Honestly, you used to be able to just be like, hey, you're going to do what your dad does. Okay. I don't want to be in the family business, Dad. I want to sell tires or whatever it was. And you would go out. But I knew a guy who was, he worked at, I think, a Les Schwab or something, an AutoZone or whatever. And he just did tires and made like $25 an hour, just doing tires all day, every day. And that's not exactly the most glamorous career, but it
paid the bills.
It paid the bills, and it's probably easier than most jobs, because you're in there doing it, and people come to you. You don't have to sell anything. You don't need the white walls or the radials or whatever. It's just people come to you and tell you what they want, and that's an easy choice because you're not making any real decisions. You're just performing a task repetitively, and maybe that's not for you. Maybe you want to be a thing for yourself, or maybe you really want to make waves and drive other people insane with how good you are at something. But if you never get started, you'll never really find your direction.
I think that's true. And I guess my final thought on this will be, like, pursue something passionately. And if you find at some point that you just don't like it anymore, that's okay. But don't halfway try. Right? If you want to play baseball, then play baseball. If you want to be a doctor, then go be a doctor. If you want to be a geologist, go be a geologist. But if you want to be a tire guy, be a tire guy.
Put some of that money away. I do about $25 a week. That's not a lot to save, but over the course of a couple of years, I've got several $1,000s in the savings, and I've never touched it because it's a drop in the bucket every week. I get paid bi-weekly, but I don't notice the automatic transfer, and it's helped me just save money a little bit at a time. It takes a long time, but if you start saving money 10 cents on the dollar, as soon as you start getting an allowance, you're gonna have thousands of dollars when you're in the 20s, and hopefully you're making good decisions with it. But maybe that'll transfer into something like early retirement, which means you can enjoy the money and not just use it for medical expenses. So hope you guys are enjoying what we're doing here. We are.
If you like us and you want to know when we're making new videos, we try to make new videos every week. But you can click the subscribe button and click the alert bell, and it'll send you a note to your email every time we upload a new video. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to comment, and thanks for watching.
See ya.